Greetings and welcome to the Dr. J blog series. It's Monday, April 21st, 2025, and on Mondays we consider mathematics and statistics. You might guess from the graphic there that we're going to be specifically looking at population and population density today. Indeed, we're going to stick closely to the statistical facts, but you'll see that there's a connection to last Saturday's vlog. It was a satirical vlog, of course. And the discussion today will also have a direct connection with next Saturday's vlog as well. So again, we're going to just stick closely to the facts today in looking at global populations and the population densities across both continents and then some specific countries as well. All right, so most of the world's most densely populated countries are, of course, quite small in size, as you might imagine. And I've just put on the screen there a global map of the population of different countries and different territories measured specifically by their population densities. I hope you can see that reasonably well, regardless of the device that you're using. But we typically measure population density in terms of the number of people on average living in each square kilometer or square mile of the country or territory that we're speaking about. And so low density countries then are basically those that are inhabited at rates of less than 50 people per square kilometer. That's a subjective call on my part, but I'm just, from a sort of common sense perspective and the kind of broader historical trends, this is how demographers talk about these issues, most generally speaking. And so these low density areas include places like Australia and New Zealand, Canada and the United States, Russia and Mongolia, Greenland and Iceland. I hope you know some of the geography here. There, I can point things out as we go along. The Nordic countries up here, and then selected countries in Africa. It just depends on the country that we're talking about specifically, as well as most of the countries across South America. High-density countries are found mostly in Europe. So we're talking about these areas in here especially, but as well as South and Southeast Asia. You'll see a number of high-density countries, and especially across the island nations as well. And then again, selected countries in the Middle East and parts of Africa. So here are the top 14 most densely populated countries and territories in the world in 2025. In other words, these are the 14 countries, all of which have population densities of at least 1,000 people per square kilometer. The list is led by Macau, which is an administrative unit of China that's operated independently, then Monaco, and then with Singapore's island nation in third place, followed by Hong Kong and Gibraltar. And it goes down from there. On the whole, as we'll get to in a moment as well, Asia represents the most densely populated continent, with a total figure that starts to approach 100 people per square kilometer. And that's even including Russia, Mongolia, and Kazakhstan. The main reason would be, of course, the enormous populations of both China and India, both of which have more than 1.4 billion people living in their respective countries. India has a population density, though, of almost 500 people per square kilometer, while China has much more land and a population density of only about 150 people per kilometer. But I should say that's a little bit misleading, though, because there's a huge swath of land in China that's almost uninhabitable. There's big chunks to the western part. And thus you have the imaginary hue line that you'll see there on screen that divides the country. And this dates back almost a century. In 1935, the demographer Hugh Huanyang drew a line across a map of China to reveal this remarkable population divide. And fast forward to today, and we see that the area west of the line comprises 64% of China's territory, but only about 6% of the country's population. Inversely, 94% of the Chinese live east of the demographic demarcation line. It's an imaginary line, but this is what Hugh called it. And it covers just 36% of the total land of China. And then there's an additional factor that typifies the China population divide. The country overall is quite ethnically homogeneous. 92% are Han Chinese. But most of the 8% that make up China's ethnic minorities live west of the line. And so that's an issue, potentially, especially in the case of Tibet and Xinjiang, two nominally autonomous regions with non-Han ethnic minorities. And so it's the combination then of economic and ethnic imbalances that means that the Hugh line is not just an historical quirk, but also a potential problem, at least from Beijing's perspective. Culturally and geographically distant from the country's east, the Tibetans and Uyghurs have registered strong opposition to China's centralizing tendencies, often resulting in some rather heavy-handed repression. Some of you are probably quite well aware of these. So again, once more, let's consider the continental populations and population densities. As I've already noted, Asia leads the way, with almost 3 billion folks just living in India and China alone. And so that's not surprising. In fact, the continental population of Asia is now approaching 5 billion people, or nearly 60% of the global population. And so their population density is up there around 95 persons per, again, kilometer squared. In second place, at least in terms of population density, would be Europe, with a population density of just over 72 people per kilometer squared. And then Europe actually has only a total population, though, of about 750 million people, but they're squeezed into a relatively tighter landmass. And then in third place, we find Africa with a density of about 34 people per square kilometer. And in that case, that is in Africa's case, there are about 1.4 billion people estimated to live there currently. But as we've seen previously, they're rather unevenly distributed across the many countries of Africa, and a mixture of some relatively high-density countries like Nigeria and Uganda, and some relatively low-density countries like Mauritania and Namibia. Namibia is interesting actually too because they produce, I just happen to know this from my interest in sports, but Namibia has a number of sprinting sensations. They do quite well in running events, even though you may not have really heard of them, but some of their athletes have done quite well in the Olympics and on the world stage, especially in the sprinting events. All right, and then once more, we can look then at the other three major continents, in terms of populations at least, and they are indeed far less populated, with both North and South America registering figures or population densities of only about 22 people per square kilometer. So that's significantly less than, certainly than Asia and Europe, but it's even less than Africa. And then as mentioned at the outset, Australia is way down the list at only 3.12 people per square kilometer. So again, once more, we've only looked at population statistics today broken down by continents and countries. There are many additional statistical measures that we might wish to consider if we're going to assess, for example, the world's global resources, minerals, gas, oil, these sorts of things, but also rare earth metals, but not to mention other aspects of their social or sociological conditions like income and wealth distributions, health statistics, and again, things like energy production, climate change, and so forth. So there are many other issues that might interest us, and these are, to some degree, always going to be tied to population bases and population densities. So we'll look into these issues further in future vlogs. But for now, I just wanted to give a brief kind of statistical overview And as I say, this is related to both last Saturday and next Saturday's vlogs as well, talking about population issues. Okay, so we'll be doing again a humorous, satirical vlog again on this Saturday, my second Dr. J solution to the current global population crisis. So please tune in for that, if not before. So until next time, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance, especially to peoples across your communities, or heck, even across your continent. You'll be able to find them a little bit more easily if you live in Asia or Europe, because they're a little more densely populated. All right, ciao for now.